Most disappointing books of 2021 that I read, anyway. Disclaimer up top here on this video: just because I put it in the most disappointing books of 2021 does not necessarily mean that it is a bad book. It could be a bad book, it could be a good book that I just wanted to be better and I was disappointed with. I will attempt to explain a little bit as I go, but before you get angry, just know that for one reason or another I was disappointed in these books. And we're just going to do 5. I was going to do 10 most disappointing books, but the more I looked through the list, I just really didn't have 10 books that I was disappointed with. For the most part, I enjoy reading, and for the most part, I'm happy with the experience. Even if I didn't like the book, I'm normally like, oh yeah, that was fine. So I couldn't even put 10 together. I tried, and I was like, that's not, at this point, I'd just have to be mean to books just to get a clickbaity title, and I couldn't. Anyway, so number 5 on the list of most disappointing books I read this year was A Maze of Death by Philip K. Dick. Now, here we are. You got one of my two favorite authors of all time, good old Philip K. Dick, and if you just watched my last video, there were several Philip K. Dick books on it. And does that mean A Maze of Death is a bad book? No, not by any stretch of the imagination. It's good. It's Philip K. Dick. I mean, come on now. It's gonna be a good book. There's no getting around it. The man's anyway. But you get me. I get so excited sometimes when I pick up a Philip K. Dick book because they're so good. And when you get to one that's just average, just real average, it's just disappointing because I want that to be Dr. Blood Money. I want it to be The Three Stigmata of Palmer Eldritch. I want it to be that book that just blows my mind. And when it doesn't, I'm super disappointed. It's still better than most things that you read, in my opinion, just because I love him so much and his writing style and just everything he does is just so great. But it was just much more, let's see, A Maze of Death, what happened? It felt like the Martian portion of, the Martian colony portion of Three Stigmata of Palmer Eldritch without all the extra layers of trippy. When I talked about The Three Stigmata, I said it felt like 4 Philip K. Dick books smashed into one book. Well, this is just one of those books, and then it's that standalone book, and that's just nowhere near as much fun as the head trip that is taking all of the ideas and just letting them wash over you at the same time. Anyway. Number 4, The Fall of Hyperion. Hyperion made it onto the best, and The Fall of Hyperion, by its nature, it has to land on the most disappointing books of the year. And it's 4, it's pretty low on the list. It's not like some grand, anyway. But just due to the fact of how freaking good Hyperion is, and it's a duology. It's 2 book. I mean, it's a 4-book series, but the Hyperion story ends with the Fall of Hyperion. It wraps up, and to have something so up here with Hyperion, how are we going to end it? Did it? I think I said in my other video, did it stick the landing? No, and it didn't. It was so disappointing to go from how good this was to whatever the Fall of Hyperion was. And it was still good. It was still easily the second best in that series of 4 books. And the ideas and the world building were still next level. Actually, some of the completion or the when he fleshes out the world building from Hyperion into the Fall of Hyperion, that didn't slump at all. If it stayed pretty much on par or met and or exceeded expectations ideas wise, world building wise, but the narrative choices and the character choices in order to get that accomplished were just disappointing, for lack of a better word. Very disappointing. So disappointing that it earns itself a place on the list of the most disappointing books I read this year. This one, once again, this one actually is a good book. Really is. Not a bad book at all. But when you compare it to Hyperion, The Fall of Hyperion is extremely disappointing. 3 Nemesis Games. Okay. On my best books of the year, I got 2 Expanse books on my best books of the year. Guess what? As consistent as the writing was, the enjoyment of those books, or at least my enjoyment of those books, was nowhere near as consistent as the quality of writing was. And I made no real bones about the fact that I didn't like Nemesis Games, and I called it the most average book that ever was average. I gave it a score of 5 on my review, and it was disappointing. It was just disappointing for that series, for how much I was enjoying that series. I did not enjoy Nemesis Games. I said in that review as well. It almost lost me. If I was going to DNF The Expanse, I would have DNF'd it after Nemesis Games. Number 2, second most disappointing book of the year. And just so you guys don't think I'm being mean to James S.A. Corey or what's his name? Dan Simmons here. I have both Philip K. Dick, who's my second favorite author of all time on this list of most disappointing books, and my boy Stephen King, who is my favorite author of all time, gets the number 2 slot with Billy Summers. And if you read it, you probably understand it wasn't good. It was such a letdown. And I read later, and I really actually thoroughly enjoyed later. It almost made it onto the list of best books. It didn't, but it almost did, because it was so good. It was just a little blip of joy to read. It was really nice. Good book. Billy Summers wasn't that. And it was the one I was excited about because it was the chunker. I mean, it wasn't like a King book like Under the Dome, but you know, it was the full King novel. You're like, yes, I wanted a full King novel. And I was so excited. And I ran out and I bought it the day that it came out, and I started reading it that day, you know, and then I immediately slowed down about halfway through, like, this isn't very good. I was like, maybe it's going to get better. It doesn't get better. It gets, if anything, it got worse. It was, for such a King fan, you know, I got a whole, this hearer, literally King, not good. Billy Summers wasn't good. I didn't like it. Yeah. I'm sad. It made me sad. Anyway, so second most disappointing book is my boy. Number 1. Anybody actually watched any of my recent videos, it's probably pretty obvious what's going to take the number 1 most disappointing book of the year for me. It's the only one that I felt obligated to put a rant online about, and it is The Rise of Endymion. It was so, I want to say so bad, but that's extremely subjective, and I know that there are people out there who absolutely love these books, and I do not want to insult them. So I'll just say it was so disappointing for me. I did not enjoy it at all. Fall of Hyperion was a good book, and it was only disappointing because compared to the book before it, which was a far better book, it looked bad in comparison. This was just a pure, utter disappointment to read. Anything decent and good about this book was just a repeat of something he had done before in a better way, and everything else around it just wasn't good. Wasn't. I just didn't like this book. Forgive me, anyone who did. Go watch that review if you want to hear me really on it. But anyway, so yeah, 2021 is over. These were my books that I did and didn't like, and I'm super excited for 2022. I'm going to put out an update video here like next week or so about what's coming up in 2022. I'm so excited. I'm ready for it. I hope that maybe some of you people will come along for the ride with me, because it's going to be good. I hope. Anyway, thank you for watching. See you next time.